Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Measured Golf Podcast, where you, the listener, sit down and join me, Michael, as we discuss all things golf. And it's been a crazy week in the golf industry as we are fresh on the heels of the 2026 PGA Merchandise Show down at the Orange County Convention Center in Orlando, Florida. And I was fortunate enough to attend, as I do annually, and had a great time getting to catch up with a lot of friends, a lot of people that we don't get to see all the time as we're all scattered across the world. But really had a great time. And I know a lot of people are interested in what were the big takeaways from the PGA Merchandise Show, what products look cool, what products don't maybe look so good, and where is the industry headed. So I thought it would be kind of fun to do a podcast and talk a little bit about the show. My presentation at Smart to Move, which I was fortunate enough to do, really honored by Smart to Move to ask me to come down and present with the absolute titans of the industry, including Dr. Kwan, James Lights, Dr. Greg Rose, Jason Zubak, just a lot, Justin James, just a lot of really bright, smart guys, and being able to present on the same stage as them was a huge honor. If you're following me on the Instagram at the Foresight guy, you can see some photos of that. And a lot of people have reached out about that presentation, wanting to know where they can view it. And as far as I know, I believe Smart to Move is going to be sharing that across their channels. So I will reshare that. But if you want, go ahead and give Smart to Move a follow on Instagram. That way you will see it just as soon as it comes up. So the other bit of business is I'm late. I'm sorry about this. It's been a very busy week, a lot of travel, been a very busy month with travel. I know normally I'm getting this podcast up at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. It is past 8 a.m. on Saturday, but I chose to sleep in, and that is to your benefit because I know I sound a little hoarse. My voice has got quite the workout this past week, and I decided to sleep in and let it recover a little bit before trying to do the podcast. So I apologize if the audio isn't as great or what you're accustomed to hearing on this podcast. So, not sick, I think, which would be great. Normally, when I go to the PGA show, I come home with the Florida crud or whatever it is that we all catch down there. But just the voice got quite a workout this week. So, definitely a cool show. It's growing, I think, again. I definitely think this is the busiest year in terms of the amount of booths that they've had in quite some time, because they actually had some of the booths were out in the lobby areas this year, which is crazy to me because if you've ever been to the show, the scale of it is hard to describe to people. I mean, it's probably a 20 to 30-minute walk from one end to the other, just walking in a straight line. So all the apparel manufacturers are there. A lot of the club manufacturers are there. All the tech companies and tech companies you haven't even heard of before are there. So there gadgets galore. Just really everything that you could imagine is kind of there. So big show, a lot of scale, people, like just tons and tons of people. Everybody there that is a PGA member or inside the industry tends to be there. And it's really a cool thing because, you know, I've been going to the PGA show now for, I want to say probably close to 15 years. And, you eventually kind of get the hipster mindset to where you're like, I don't want to go to the PGA show and this, that, and the other. But not only do you have the PGA show Wednesday through Friday, but you also have the demo day on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday night, you have this big event called the Open Forum. And if you're unfamiliar with the Open Forum, they kind of bring in all the brightest minds in the golf industry, all the coaches. It's kind of the coaches show, if you will. And they have that the night before the PGA. And, I think this year it went till almost 1 a.m., starts at 5:30. Everybody gets an hour time slot. And they have panels and discussion and a lot of great presenters. And really the open forum is the big event that I really look forward to because not only do you learn new things from all of these brilliant people, but it's also an amazing networking event. Everybody's there. Mark Blackburn's there, John Tattersall's there, all of your big name coaches that you would imagine, they're all there, and it's a great networking event. It's nice to see everybody, exchange pleasantries in some cases, maybe have a little friction in others. But the open forum is really a great event, but it really is this week-long event. And like I said, there's a lot of people who maybe aren't too interested in the show. For me as a quote unquote solo practitioner that owns a standalone golf business that doesn't do retail, there's not a lot of things at the show for me, particularly that I'm going to be interested in. But once again, it's this kind of week within the industry to where whether you're going to the show or not, there's events outside of the show, but everybody kind of in the industry kind of more or less winds up in Orlando for this week. So you get to just see so many people and catch up, and it's really a great event. And if you ever have the chance to go, it's cool. And I was talking to one of my clients earlier today, and he desperately wants, he's a golf sicko. Like, this guy is really up there on the on the pantheon of golf sickos. But like he said, just going and being able to hear people present and talk. And I was telling him, I went to grab lunch one day, just something kind of quick to kind of hold me over, and it's like I'm sitting there wolfing down a really terrible Papa John's pizza, and James Lights is standing over there presenting. So getting to go over and just listen to James for a few minutes while I was eating lunch, really cool. James brings a lot to the table, has been doing this longer than most, and kind of has taught us all a lot of things. So it is cool to get to see these presentations, and learn, right? Like, that's really what I'm interested in, is going and learning and seeing people. And then obviously this year and last year, I presented last year at the Open Forum, and then this year presenting for Smart to Move, which was really cool for me. I take that stuff serious. I take it as a huge honor first and foremost. I'm very appreciative of Gregory and JP and Tyler and Jamie and everybody over at Smart to Move, who was nice enough to even think about having me on that. And I think, and I was talking to some people about this, I think, when you think of force plate companies, there's really three, kind of predominantly. We've got Swing Catalyst, we've got Smart to Move, and we've got Gasp systems. And Gasp doesn't really, they kind of share piggyback off of some other companies at the show. They don't really have a standalone thing. But Swing Catalyst and Smart to Move tend to do presentations every year, and I think it's me and Mr. Mike Adams who have presented for both Swing Catalyst and Smart to Move. So, being the force plate guy, you can't see if you're listening, but I'm doing air quotations. Being the force plate guy, having the honor of presenting for both companies, that means a lot to me. And if it is just me and Mr. Mike Adams that have done that, then I'm always happy to be on any list with him. So, really cool. Had a great presentation. Really enjoyed it a lot. Talked about connecting ground reaction forces to club delivery. Had a good turnout for it. A lot of friends showed up, but had a lot of people that I'd never met before that I got to spend some time talking to. Really, a fun presentation. Like I said, I'm excited for Smart to Move to make that available, because I think I might have got a couple good lines in there. So I'm hoping that helps people. But I had a lot of people reach out to me after the presentation that don't have force plates. And they were like, hey, man, I really loved your presentation because, you know, you talked to the people that obviously have force plates and, shared some good stuff with them. But you also shared a lot of things for us that maybe don't have force plates that we can still kind of start building into our coaching and our methodology. So that was really cool. I'm happy that people were able to take something away from it. If you hear any weird noises in the background, I'm home today, and my dogs are eating. So I apologize if you hear crunching in the background. That's Frankie that has decided to eat her lunch right now. So, yeah, so great presentation. Ended up spending a lot of time kind of around the Smart to Move booth. I really enjoy their team. I enjoy learning. Dr. Tyler Standiford and I have a good time every time we're together. JP Fernandez. Just it's really cool to see how much they've grown. And, I James Lights was like the first person in the continental United States to have the 3D force plates from Smart to Move, and I was like the third. So, I remember early doors when Smart to Move was really just Gregory and JP, and now it's really morphed into this company, and they have, a large team, and it's just really cool to see that a lot of people, Swing Catalyst didn't have as big of a presence at the shows they've had in the past. Like I said, Gasp is kind of piggybacking off another company. So Smart to Move is really kind of the epicenter at the PGA Show of force plates, force plate technology, and that kind of thinking. So it kind of creates a nice place to hang out and meet a lot of people who maybe know me through this podcast or through the YouTube or through our Instagram, and just talk to people about stuff and share ideas and strategies. So it's really, really cool. I really enjoyed that. Started the week, I flew in on Tuesday morning so that I could attend the demo day. Demo day is always kind of what it is. It's at Orange County National Golf. I don't know if it's called golf course or golf club, but Orange County National. If you've never been, it's a pretty cool spot. So they have a 360-degree range there. It's huge. And that's where they host the demo day every year. And like I said, not every major OEM club company is there. But once again, you have, a lot of training aids, a lot of trinkets, a lot of gadgets, stuff like that. But once again, people, really great to catch up. My friends over at Peak, the Peak Institute, were presenting at the wellness stage. So I got to hang out with them a little bit and catch up and see what's going on over in the DC area with them and kind of how they're growing and evolving. So really enjoyed my time at the demo day, getting to see some people, catch up. Even saw some people that I haven't seen since college. And as you can see in this video, I've got quite a bit of gray hair in my beard, so college was a while ago. So just really, I apologize. There might be a couple breaks where I'm taking a drink of coffee to try to keep my voice together. But yeah, so getting to see some people I haven't seen in a long time, getting to check out a few things at the demo day. Nothing really stood out too much this year. I know a lot of people are like, well, tell us what was good, tell us what was bad. I didn't really, demo day was a little different this year. It felt like, feels like maybe a lot of the companies that have been there in the past maybe weren't there this year. But, generally speaking, once again, I'm in a unique situation to where I have a standalone facility that doesn't do retail and primarily focuses on coaching. So a lot of the things that are there are definitely going to appeal more to the people who are working at a club and doing that kind of thing more so than what we're doing. So wasn't a whole lot of takeaways from demo day. We did a lap. Like I said, I ended up kind of hanging out over on the health and wellness area and talking a lot with the guys from Peak and watching their presentation. And those guys have a lot of good information. So I enjoyed that, good learning opportunity. And then we kind of kicked off, Tuesday night with the open forum, which I thought was really good. I you know, it's in years past. I mean, there's been fistfights of this thing. I mean, there's drama, there's debate, there's a lot of egos in the room. There's a lot of factions, different factions in the room. So there's always kind of this friction that occurs there, which is, I think, what sells tickets for that thing. But this year, I would say there's a little less of that and a little bit more sharing of knowledge. And I thought there was some really cool stuff there. I think I've talked before about John Tattersall. I think John did an amazing presentation talking about ground forces, talking about kind of how he teaches with them and what he's trying to do with different types of clients. So I thought that was really good. I thought that Dr. Scott Lynn from Swing Catalyst did an amazing presentation, kind of more or less talk. And as you can tell, right, it's the things I'm interested in that I lean into. So Dr. Scott Lynn from Swing Catalyst was obviously talking a lot about ground reaction forces, which is always of interest to me. And then I would say the presentation that I probably took the most away from was Stephen Sweeney, who is, in that on that podium of great putting coaches out on the PGA Tour. And he had a really amazing product that he was demonstrating called the Arc Master. And if anybody, maybe I should start a GoFundMe. If anybody wants to donate to me buying one of these Arc Masters, I would greatly appreciate it because I think it's probably one of the greatest putting training aid devices that I've seen. I really do. And I went and actually looked at it at the show as well and was even more impressed with it in person than watching Steven present with it. But not only did he have this amazing tool, but he shared a lot of evidence and data from what he sees the best putters in the world doing and how they train that and how that all kind of goes to work together. So I thought that was amazing. Really good presentation talking about how much arc the best players in the world are kind of make building into their stroke, and then talking about the face's relationship to that arc. I thought it was really well done. Stephen does an amazing job presenting that information. He's obviously very good at what he does. So I think him being open and sharing some of that information was really, really cool and helpful for me, and definitely changed maybe a little bit of my perception when it comes to putting and the putting stroke. So once again, I think that's amazing. I think that, not only did he do an amazing job of kind of sharing his information and talking about what he's seen work at the highest of levels, but then pairing that with this training aid and with some software or technology, you really can kind of start building some effective putting strokes very quickly. So I'm an application guy. I coach golf for a living. So theory is great, information's great, data's great. But if you can't use that information and data and technology to help somebody actually perform better, it's not very usable. So him really sharing the application and how he goes about training that, I thought was super, super cool. I love what Steven's done down in Jupiter with the facility that he's built. He's really, he's leaving no stone unturned when it comes to putting. So anytime you get an opportunity to listen to somebody like Steven present and shares information, I think is always good. But really enjoyed that. Trackman had a big rollout, kind of this year at the PGA Show, and they are now doing some 3D motion capture within the Trackman software, which looks like, it's like anything. Anytime a technology is new, it looks good, it looks cool, but as somebody who's spent a lot of time in the 3D space, you're always kind of wondering about how accurate this is or how fully formed this modeling is. And I think Trackman has done a good job of not necessarily always being the first to market with something, but bringing something to market that's going to work pretty well. And I'm trying to kind of hedge what I'm saying here a little bit because I don't want I don't want a lot of the people that I know that are really involved in the 3D space to kill me for this because I don't want to say that I think the Trackman 3D stuff is perfect yet. I don't, but that's only because it's new. But because it's new, it's going to have the opportunity to learn. They're going to begin to be able to feed way more data and information into their modeling. So it's going to continue to get better. But I think, and I've said this in the past, I think for the golf coaching application, I think there's this race to a fully integrated system, meaning that we have a launch monitor, we have 3D motion capture, and we have 3D force plates. So it's, excuse me, really cool to see a company kind of creating a solution for me. I have the force plates, I have Trackman, and now if we have some markerless motion capture going on within the Trackman, that's going to make it much easier for me to show clients, exactly what's going on in time and space with their golf swing, maybe more so than just showing them the data points that Trackman currently provides with the club delivery and ball flight. So excited about that, excited to test that. I had a meeting with Trackman while I was down there. It looks like I'm going to get a beta for that software and the motion capture. So I'm just very excited about that because, like I said, I think that's going to be good enough for now to help people start understanding their golf swing a little better. And I've talked about. I'm going to take a drink of coffee. So 1 second. I've talked about in the past, a lot of this 3D motion capture technology through iPhones and things like that. not being true 3D because it isn't true 3D. It's one camera angle. It can't be true 3D. But I think, and I've talked about Sportsbox AI in the past, you know, I use Sportsbox. I don't hide that. I've used it in the past. I probably don't use it as much as I used to, but I've used Sportsbox in the past. And, a lot of people come to me who have experience in the 3D space and they go, how do you trust that stuff? And what numbers do you look at? And the answer is I don't look at any of the numbers, because I don't think a lot of clients benefit from more data because they don't have the background that I have to understand the ranges of this data and whether it's good for them or not. But something I do like is I do like having these tracers and being able to show people what their golf swing actually looks like. And with the tracers, you can show them if it's really got a big loop in it. You can show them if it's too shallow or too steep. And it makes a nice visual presentation. So, like I said, I'm very excited to have that integrated into the Trackman software while I'm using the force plates, because now not only can we show them how they're using the ground to create energy and speed, but we also can start showing them through the avatar and through the tracers, kind of how that's moving their body in time and space relative to how they're trying to use the ground to apply force. So I think that's going to be a really big net gain for us as coaches who have Trackman. Very, very cool. And I think that's the big push, right, in the golf industry, is getting the software better. And one thing that I was really impressed with at the show was I went over to the Foresight booth with my buddy Parker McLaughlin. He was kind of showing me around a little bit with the Foresight crew, and they have new software. And I'm not a Foresight ambassador, and I can say this. I think a lot of us have looked at the Foresight software in the past and been like, man, this just isn't where it needs to be. And it appears, have really invested heavily into the software. I think the application is going to be much better moving forward. And I think it's going to be super, super helpful for people that want to get more out of their practice time because, like I said, the Foresight software has been a little lacking and definitely quite a bit behind the Trackman software in the past. So I think they've really invested into that, have really upped the graphic quality, are providing more things to do within the practice space that Foresight provides. So I think Foresight's really upped their game with the software. I'm not surprised by that. They've got 8 a.m. Sports behind them. They are kind of partnered up. I shouldn't say partnered up, but they're under the same umbrella as Bushnell. So we've got Bushnell and Foresight, both kind of their sister companies, if you will, really doing some cool things, sharing some ideas. And I think that is going to continue to get better. And I like the Bushnell product. I have one. I have one of the GC3s. I actually use a GC3 a lot with my force plates because generally when I'm doing force plate work, I'm really looking at path and face with people. The GC3 does an amazing job with those metrics, but they've really kind of upped what the GC3 can do. And then obviously the software within Foresight has gotten much better, which Bushnell is piggybacking off of. So I think that's going to get a lot better. Super cool, right? So as you can tell, like, for me at the show, it's less about the trinkets and the apparel and those things, and way more about the technology and geeky nerd stuff that I'm kind of into. So yeah, the Bushnell stuff was really, really cool. Happy to see them making some strides on the software. As a proponent of using all the different technologies available and having them all available at our facility at Measured Golf in Ann Arbor, anytime we get a software upgrade, that certainly makes us happy and allows us to provide more options to our clients here in Ann Arbor. So super happy to see that. One of the best pieces of technology, honestly, is, and I'm not trying to make it sound like a plug for them, but Smart to Move announced that they're going to have a companion app coming out, which I think is going to be very, very good and allow for the sharing of data to be a lot more seamless and actually shareable. So, with me doing as much virtual coaching as I'm doing these days, the really cool thing is that Smart to Move, Swing Catalyst, Gasp, they're all kind of getting more plates out into the marketplace. So a lot of people reach out to me because of my expertise in ground reaction forces. And, they're kind of like, hey, I want to do the virtual coaching, but I also would really like to understand the ground forces better. So the cool thing is, in particular with Smart to Move, with this new companion app that they've announced, is what happens now is people reach out to me. I tend to know a lot of people in the industry that have force plates, and I'm able to kind of get them to the closest person that has force plates for them. And they can go there, get the capture, and they can send that capture to me, and I can open it because I have the software to be able to view it. However, what happens a lot of times is that I can't really, if people come to me in Ann Arbor, Michigan and get on the force plates, or they work with me when I'm on the road at a different facility, I really can't share the information with them other than like kind of create a screencast or a screen recording, and then I'm able to share that with them. But with this new companion app, it's going to be really, really cool because we're going to be able to actually put that information in the client's hand, and now they can disseminate that information however they choose. So I think that companion app is going to be really, really good. It's going to give the consumer full access to all of this information, which I think is going to be super helpful moving forward. And I'm really excited about that because I just think it's going to make the sharing of information much easier for people moving forward. So super cool. A lot of the technology stuff is, I don't want to say kind of already been out there, but there has been a very common theme at the PGA Show over the last several years, especially since COVID. And when I first started going to the show, the let's call it the technology section of the show, where you have the force plates and the launch monitors and the different apps for the phones, it was a very small area. But now it's exceedingly gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and now is a considerable portion of the square footage of the show. And we're seeing more and more companies getting into the simulator space. We're seeing more and more companies, bringing an app to market. We're seeing more companies getting into the personal launch monitor space, or the apps for coaching and development. So we're seeing more and more of that. And it's one of those things to where, for me, I don't want to like get into the accuracy thing, but a lot of what I'm seeing now kind of being pushed out there is way more entertainment based. And I mean, that's great for the consumer, right? That, something to do that keeps them entertained. But when it comes to like the established stuff that we all kind of know about and trust, Trackman, Foresight, Flight Scope, Full Swing, all these different companies, that stuff is really pretty established. The big thing that I thought was cool from Bushnell Golf, I believe it's Bushnell Golf. They have this really cool, we've got the rangefinder laser, and then we've got kind of the watch. They came out with something really cool. I like to walk when I play golf. It's important to me that it definitely enhances the experience. But they've now got a strap to where it has basically the watch functionality where you get front, middle, back distance. It's built into the strap, which I think is super cool. So now you don't have to necessarily wear something or hang something on your golf bag. Rather, it's kind of right there on the strap. So you can just kind of take a look at that. I thought that was super helpful. I believe that also has a speaker built in, which really isn't my thing, but I think a lot of people will like having that. But yeah, I mean, the technology that is at the show is definitely a big part of it now. And I caught a little bit of Bernie Najjar's kind of talk at the PGA stage. He was named the PGA Coach of the Year this year, and he was talking, a lot about technology and how it's here to stay. I mean, 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of people thought that it was kind of a bubble within the golf space, but the consumer is more educated. When they go on social media, when they go on YouTube, they're seeing more of this data being presented when it comes to golf instruction. So the consumer wants the technology. And because the consumer wants the technology, we're going to see the companies continue to push that technology out the door and make it more available to the end consumer. So I don't think that's a bad thing, but I definitely think there is a over, at least what I saw at the show. I think there's an overemphasis on AI. and what AI is going to do and how it's going to change the industry. And, the big thing that I don't think people realize is, anytime you're dealing with human beings and trying to help human beings make change, that's a complicated situation. And human beings are messy. Not two of us are really the exact same. And I think, it's going to be a while before the AI apps to where you kind of feed them a golf swing and they spit out what you need to do. I think it's going to be a while before that's really a good option for people. I'm not saying that it's a terrible option, like that's better than nothing. If you're somebody who is working on your golf game and doesn't really know where to start or what to do, I think that the AI stuff can be good because it kind of points out, like, hey, this is the big problem area for you. This is something maybe you should spend some time on. I just think we have to take all that information with a grain of salt. Like I said earlier, I really like the Sportsbox app and how I use that. But once again, I'm not really getting after the numbers that much because a lot of the numbers I don't think are calculated all that well. So I think you just have to take that stuff with a grain of salt, but definitely here to stay. Definitely going to be something that is continued to be pushed into the future because I think that's just where the industry really is right now. And as Mike Adams said back in 2019, why guess when you can measure? And I definitely think that is going to continue to be a big trend in the golf coaching space, in the golf development phase. So really cool stuff to see with the tech. I really didn't see too many products in the tech space that really jumped out at me. There was one that I thought has some pretty good application and pretty cool. It was called the Genius Ball, and it's a putting. It's a golf ball, but the core of the golf ball is some pretty sophisticated, fancy technology. And what it does is it provides a lot of putting metrics to somebody when they putt with it. So it gives them the stimp, it gives them how many bounces, it gives them how much skid, it reads the spin. It gives you a lot of really pertinent information when it comes to putting. And I think that could be something that we see kind of take off a little bit. I think like a smart golf ball makes a lot of sense. I don't think we're ever going to get to where the golf ball is going to be really like a Trackman replacement. Maybe down the road with the way technology is moving, but I think this is a really good application for putting because not everybody owns a Trackman, right? They're very expensive. So I think with the putting ball, the Genius Ball, I think that could be really good for people, especially people who struggle with their putting and help them kind of understand not only the green speed, but how the ball is rolling off the face, which direction the ball is rolling off the face. I think that could be really good. They sell it in a 3-pack. I don't think it was overly expensive. It's definitely not a ball that you're going to put into play on the golf course by any means, but I think you could see that kind of take off a little bit. They definitely looked like they had put quite a bit of investment into it. They had quite a big booth, and the app looked pretty good. Looked pretty cool. So I think that could be something in the tech space that takes off. I'm not surprised by that. I think a lot of companies have tried in the past to kind of create quote unquote a smart ball that kind of provides some data and some information to people. So I'm not surprised that as the technology gets better, it gets smaller, it gets faster. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that. So that was really the cool thing that I saw in the technology space. So it was interesting, though. You know, there's been a lot of push in the past to create a force plate grip or pressure grip that kind of allows us to start understanding what's going on at the handle, which is quite important in the golf swing. And I was very excited. I was over at the Smart to Move booth talking to some coaches I really respect, and they were like, "Hey, man, you got to go check out this grip. There's a new grip, and it looks like it's pretty good, and they're going to do some cool stuff." And I went over to check it out, and Carson from the Golf Lab was over there. And Carson and the Golf Lab and Liam Mucklow have probably been looking at the grip more so than anybody else in the industry. They've presented on this topic at open forums in the past. They've done a lot of research with this. I myself have one of the grips from Sensor Edge and have looked a lot into how we are creating forces and pressures at the handle level. And it was really funny. I don't want to name the company because I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, but you know, this is where, like I was saying earlier, you have to take a lot of this technology with a grain of salt because Carson and I were listening to them show us and tell us their presentation and kind of look at what they do. And they were showing us graphs that neither Carson nor myself have ever seen nor make sense. And we're trying to explain to us that, all the big pressure changes happening at the ball, and from a physics perspective, if you move the golf club back and then forward again, that there's going to be a big pressure change in the hands at that moment in time because we're changing the direction and having to kind of move the golf club in a different direction. And their graphs weren't showing that at all. So, I think that they had a great product. I think they're working at it. But once again, it's like that. That's a cool thing, right? Like we as golfers all want to know more information. We all want to have more tech at our disposal. But once again, like these are companies that are trying to get a product to market. And like I always tell people, the tech companies, they know how to build the machine, they know how to measure things, but then the application, they don't know. They're not golf coaches, they're technology companies. So you really have to take those things with a grain of salt. You got to be careful with the information. I think a lot of people, it's kind of like people that watch the news and take everything as being literal, and they don't understand it's a made for TV show and they're trying to get ratings. I think the tech is that way too. We need to get the tech out there. I think the tech is a good thing, but then let's get the tech in the hands of the people who do this and understand these things and understand kind of how things go together and work. And then let's make sure that the information that they're providing is correct and accurate, and what we're measuring and what's important to measure. And that's where I think there's a big disconnect in golf right now is that the technology companies are really pushing a lot of tech, but they're not really getting into the application, how to make things usable for the consumer. And that's why I said earlier, I don't think the AI is going to replace golf coaches anytime soon because they have their models and they have everything that they have at their disposal with this technology. But it's putting it into application is really the gold. And that was the conversation I had with several coaches is, is technology good or bad? Well, in my opinion, technology is always going to be better than no technology because it's at least moving us towards being more objective versus subjective. So I really think it's not a matter of, you know, getting absolutes and getting something absolutely accurate. I think it's how the coach uses that technology to share their message with their client or their student and how they help them get better at golf. And like I said, I'm not really using Sportsbox, and I'm not slamming Sportsbox in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a good product, but I don't use Sportsbox the way it's prescribed. I'm not sitting there and looking at all the numbers and going, oh, well, these are green, these are red. We got to change these based off the color. I'm way more using it in what I would call a user-friendly way to show people more or less what their golf swing looks like and how the club is moving through time and space, as well as some of the body segments. So I think that stuff's good. I didn't get down to the apparel side of the show very much. My last day there was Thursday. I did walk down there to kind of check out a couple companies that I'm interested in. It's crazy every year. You go down there and there's so many new companies and there's so many. I mean, there's a lot of money in golf, right? And golfers love to spend money on looking the part. So there's always a lot of these apparel companies. The shoe companies I tend to look at a little bit more than the apparel, just because that kind of matches a little bit more with what I do in ground reaction forces. I thought it was interesting this year to see, a lot of the companies, man. I mean, for years it's been the tennis shoes of golf, right? Like no spikes, kind of like nubs and different kind of soles. But we've seen this kind of big move away from spikes. And now you're seeing that almost all the companies are at least having spiked options now, if not adding spikes to what they already offer. And I think that's big. I think, generally the reason people buy shoes is because of how they look or the comfort level of them. But the golf shoes are definitely a key piece of equipment when it comes to your golf game. Getting a shoe that matches your arch type, I think, is very, very important. I have really flat feet. And as much as I like to wear, the Jordan, uh, AF1s, that style that's a flat shoe because they look good and I think they're cool. As much as I like that type of shoe, I have a pretty flat foot. And when it comes to creating AP force, my feet don't like to do that because I have this collapsed arch. So that really inhibits what my feet want to do versus what I need them to do. And that's where having more of that FootJoy classic style shoe that's got a little bit more of a heel, that's really advantageous for me because of the way my feet are. And I can't really change that, right? So I think that, matching up a shoe for performance is way more important than matching up a shoe for style or comfort. And, a lot of people don't walk. I do. So I kind of have to walk that line a little bit. But for most people who are riding around in golf carts, I definitely think looking at the performance is way more important than the comfort and or the style. So happy to see companies bringing back spikes. I think spikes are important. I've definitely in the past few years been a little more of a spikeless guy, but I've really thought about that a lot. And last year, started putting some spikes back on, and I think that's a good way to move in terms of getting more performance out of the footwear. Getting more, let's call it friction between the bottom of the foot and the ground is going to be a good thing when it comes to ground reaction forces and being able to take advantage of those. So I definitely think the spiked footwear is a better option than the no spike. And I was out earlier this year, or maybe late last year. I can't remember when it was, but working with Parker, we had Frederick Lindblom come over, who's big into the shoes, big into the spikes, and we did some testing. And I've done testing in the past before that with a spiked versus non-spiked shoe. And generally speaking, I think the spike is going to help quite a bit. So once again, seeing more of these shoe companies kind of going to at least having spikes as an option again, I don't think that's a big surprise. With the force plates taking off and the research coming out from the force plate users, I think a lot of us are kind of in agreement that the spikes help. So wasn't surprised by that. When I'm kind of thinking about like walking around the show and things that I saw that you might find interesting. It's obviously the hype season. Everybody's really, from the club side, really like touting what their driver is going to do this year and how much better it is than the last version. And I don't know how much of that to trust and believe until we get them in our hands and hit them and test them. But it sounds like but the drivers in particular are really, it's all about winning the launch monitor war. And I think the biggest reason for that is that if you're going to go out and buy a new driver, the chances that you hit that on a launch monitor are pretty high. And I think that's the consumer has come to expect, like, hey, if I'm going to go try out drivers and I'm going to get fit, that's generally happening on a launch monitor. So the club companies aren't dumb, and they know that they have to be able to perform on the launch monitor. So the big things are forgiveness on off center strikes and keeping the ball speed high, right? Like the number that sells drivers is ball speed. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there's a lot more to it than that. But that's the number generally that's going to sell drivers for these companies. So, you see a lot of different things happening. I think that potentially the new Ping K series driver could be interesting. A lot of carbon. They've moved almost all the weight. I think it's like 32 grams into the slider on the back to kind of dial things in. But it definitely seems like the club companies are leaning into more adjustability so that they can fit this thing better. I know TaylorMade with the QI4D has engineered a shaft to kind of go with their driver that they think is going to provide a better fit for a lot of players versus the pick the shaft you like based off what it looks like on the wall and how it performs. So I think it's really getting more into the customization and the fitting of the driver. And I think once again, it's the driver, the OEMs that are putting out a new driver every year, every 2 years, they're maxed out. Like 1.50 is still the legal limit when it comes to the smash factor. They can't make the face any springier. So really, the two things that they can do are try to make it more forgiving and try to make the ball fly straighter. that's really all that they can do. And I think realistically, the forgiveness, we're in this 4K era, or 10K, excuse me, era of forgiveness. And that's what 10K represents, is this maximum level of forgiveness to where you can hit it all over the face. It still retains its ball speed and still wants to fly fairly straight. But I think, they're really kind of getting maxed out with what their limitations are with how they design these drivers, which is why I think you're now seeing more of this emphasis on fitting. I think it's kind of the last frontier. And how do we really dial this in for the consumer so that they buy their driver, right? If I have more availability in the fitting process and just that head, right, or that shaft, but primarily in the head, if I can really fine tune that, I'm going to be able to increase ball speed, maybe a mile an hour or two. I'm going to get the ball to fly a little bit straighter, and we're really splitting hairs now with these drivers. Everybody's making good equipment these days, so yeah, I think that's really cool. I honestly spent very little time looking at that stuff. Like I said, I don't want to really know what the marketing team has to say about it. I want to actually get it in my hands and test it and kind of see where things are going and see really if there's any difference, because you don't know until you get it in your hands and kind of see how it performs for you. And kind of on brand for me, I spent most of my time talking about clubs with Todd Dempsey, which is kind of my annual pilgrimage of going to the PGA Show. Get to see Todd. If you're unfamiliar with Todd, you should definitely look him up. Todd Dempsey, Persimmon. He's still making Persimmon drivers in his garage. Makes really beautiful clubs, and I'm excited because I think I finally got Todd talked into building me a driver and a fairway wood that are Persimmon, and I'm going to play them. Like, these aren't going to be like pieces of furniture for me. They're on the wall. I'm going to put them into play. I'm not saying I'm going to play every single round with them, but I think I love the old school stuff. I love the purity of the game stuff. Like I said on the previous podcast, I've got some irons that aren't blades and aren't mirrors, maybe going into the bag for a little bit this year, just to try to make the game a little bit more enjoyable for myself and make it a little easier on myself. But there's definitely going to be periods of time to where I go out there with the blades and maybe put the persimmons in with the blades in the McKenzie bag and go out for a walk and just kind of get back to basics with golf, man. Because as much as we've talked about technology and the advancements within the golf industry, there's still something pure about going out there with some clubs that don't help much and a persimmon driver, and just trying to kind of find your way around the golf course with it. And it's a little more, it's just a completely different experience, right? It's not about hitting bombs. It's more about getting the ball in play and playing golf, which I love. I mean, as somebody who kind of works the way I do, with the ground reaction forces and all the technology, I'm very fortunate I get to work with people on gaining club head speed and hitting the ball farther. And yeah, I mean, I can't argue that that's not important in the current game of golf. It certainly is. But at the same time, there's more to golf than like what's your top ball speed. There really is. And I think we're moving a little farther away from that than I'm comfortable with, which is why I probably like going overseas and playing golf a bit more. Just because it really isn't moving as fast as we are here in the United States with that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like, I really enjoy my time with Todd. Todd was obviously a very high level player. I think he was roommates with Phil Mickelson, won an NCAA title on his own, had a career on tour. But just, he has a different viewpoint and he loves the persimmon stuff. And I love the persimmon stuff. So I had a great chat with Todd, and just a ton of people, getting to spend time, not only talking about the game of golf, but meeting Jeff from Downshift was amazing. I mean, I've been a big fan of what he's doing for a long time with Downshift Golf. He was nice enough to send me a couple of the mini boards, which I've been using a lot, and I think they're great. But just talking to him about the plight of being a small business owner, which I am, was really really fun. So yeah, it was a good show. It's a lot in a couple of days, and for me, remembering kind of where I've been, like I said, I've been going to this thing for probably close to 15 years. And, I remember just being starstruck and seeing the Butch Harmons of the world, and like not really having the courage to go up and talk to them. And now people coming up to me, it's just such a privilege. And I had so many coaches and people come up to me and, hey man, I listened to the podcast, and hey man, I watched the YouTube, and hey, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. And it's very nice. And yes, it feeds my ego. It makes me feel good about myself, but it's also a huge opportunity for me to give back and to spend some time talking to people and answering their questions and trying to be a resource for them, because just like you listening to this podcast, it means a lot to me. And I said this to a lot of people at the show. For me, the podcast and the YouTube and the social media stuff, that's never been about trying to create an identity. That's never really been about trying to become quote unquote golf famous. It's way more about trying to get back and trying to share good information with people, and maybe give them something that they're not finding elsewhere. And I pride myself on, trying to get down to what's really going on from a more scientific kind of level. And, I'm very skeptical. It's just me by nature. So I'm not a big fan of just repeating things because they've been said, but I am a big fan of tearing things apart and seeing how they work and see what the application is. And does that match up with the physics that we need to occur in the golf swing? Does that match up with the ground reaction force scenario? Does that match up with the club delivery and create the ball flight we want? And I'm very happy to tear things apart and take a deep dive and do the research and kind of dig in. And it's no good if I keep that to myself. I don't ever want to be a gate holder or a gatekeeper, excuse me. So being able to put this information out here on the YouTube, on social media, is me in a very, very direct way, just trying to give back. So everybody that came up and said nice things, thank you. It means a lot. I appreciate it. And I hope that you got what you wanted to get out of your encounter with me. Like, I hope that I was open and shared some good information and maybe some advice and things like that, because that's really what I desire is. And the reason I go to the show is, hey, I want to learn, like that's always been a key kind of thing for me is I want to be able to learn and continue to evolve and grow as a coach and get better at what I do. But then also like seeing people and sharing information and all the young coaches and, going over to the PGM booths and seeing old friends and meeting young guys and girls that are just getting into the industry and being able to share things with them, I think is really cool. I think it's important. It's if you're going to put yourself out here and you're going to share information, then I think you have to take time for people to answer their questions and help them develop and help them get better. Because, with the technology, with all the things that are kind of coming out in the golf space, I really feel like coaches should get better quicker now. And giving them the tools and helping them understand how to use the tools to get the application they need out of them is important, because at the end of the day, we're all charged, if we work in the golf industry, to grow the game. And grow the game to me is about leaving it in a better place than we found it. So, if I can help a young coach get up and going, or share my experience with how I got to where I'm at, or give them the inspiration to go out and to start their own business and to kind of make a go of it as being a standalone coach, I'm very happy to do that. So I really enjoy getting to talk to people. It means a lot to me. It definitely is cool. I'm not going to lie about that. I enjoy seeing people, enjoy talking to people. I enjoy kind of moving around the show, and different companies now, want to talk to me that never did in the past. So that's always kind of an interesting proposition as well. So, like I tell them all, I'm like, hey, I'm more than happy to test this product for you. I'm more than happy to kind of look at it and give you what I think, but just understand that, I'm going to give you feedback. So I'll definitely tell you the cool things about it and the things that are really good about it, but I also don't mind to share with them the ways it could be better. So I always give them that caveat. So hopefully they don't get too angry when I start sending emails back and forth with them. But the show's really cool. Really enjoyed my time there. It's a long week. It's like I said, the open forum, went well past midnight. And I started that day at 3 a.m. in the morning, getting on a flight to fly down there. So long days, a lot of talking, as you can hear in my voice. Probably it's recovering a little bit now, but yeah, they're super long days, but they're good days, and get to meet a lot of new people, which I enjoyed. Get to see a lot of old friends, and then once again kind of get to see, what the trend lines are in the industry, because that's kind of how I look at the show. Is you kind of look at, how much space is given to this segment of the industry, how much is it growing, how much has it scaled back. And yeah, it's been really cool, because a lot of these companies, man, I remember seeing, back in the day, and they were way smaller, right? And now they've grown. So that's always cool to see. I'm super happy for everybody. And it's definitely one of those things I look forward to. I definitely get a little hipsterish, and I'm not going to go, and I'm not interested, and this, that, and the other. But then you get there, and you remember why you went. So really appreciate it. Appreciate everybody that spent time with me. I love everybody. Like, it was a great time. So yeah, that's pretty much the PGA show. Like I said, I definitely lean into the tech and the nerdy stuff. I'm sorry I don't have, a recommendation on which driver you have to buy or anything like that. One thing I will say about the tech, maybe one of the cooler things I've seen in a while, and I don't think I've seen it. I don't really follow them on social media, so maybe they've put it out there more, and I just haven't seen it. But I think, I was a Titleist guy for years. Like, I was a staffer with Titleist for almost 10 years. And I always thought the oil can finish was beautiful. Like, that's one of my favorite finishes in golf. And I see now to where they're bringing out, I'm pretty sure they're doing it in all the irons, but they're doing an oil can finish on all the irons. I think that's really cool. Like, that's almost enough to get me to want to buy a set of Titleist irons and get back into playing those. But I thought the oil can finish was really cool. The SM11 wedges are out. They're kind of tweaked. I don't know how you continue to tweak Vokey wedges. Obviously, a very good wedge, and it's like they just keep refining and keep refining. And like I said, we'll see, right? When we get them in our hands and we get them on the golf course, we'll see, is there really a difference between like an SM10 and an SM11 when we get outside? Who knows, right? So I always tell people a lot of the testing takes place in a lab, and the differences from one year to the next tend to be pretty minimal in a lab setting. And then we get out into the environment, and I feel like sometimes that difference gets even more small or more diminished than it was in the lab. So we just got to wait and see. But good week in Orlando. Enjoyed my time there. It's been a busy month, a lot of travel. So I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to see my dogs and my wife. That always makes me happy. And it looks like the rest of this year is really going to be busy as well with travel. So I'm looking forward to getting out. As always, if you want to follow along kind of the journey, if you will, you're more than welcome to follow us on social media. You can follow the Measured Golf page. I don't do a great job kind of keeping that up to date as much as I should, but I do post more and share more through the Force Plate Guy handle on Instagram. So if you're wanting to kind of see what I'm up to, what's going on, make sure to give us a follow over at the Force Plate Guy and Measured Golf on Instagram. If you want to check out the video of this podcast, or you want to kind of get into some of the deeper stuff, we've got a whole ton of content outside of just the podcast on our YouTube channel, which you can find by going to YouTube and searching Measured Golf. And then if you can't remember any of that, you can just simply go over to our website at measuredgolf.com and click on there, and all the links are there. And you can kind of see what we're up to and what we have going on. So I think there's going to be some cool things happening with Measured Golf this coming year. A few things in the works I'm not really ready to talk about yet, but I think there's going to be some changes coming, which could be really cool. And looking forward to being on the road this year. I really enjoy my time out there. Once again, meeting new people, getting to help people with their golf games. But if you're interested, you're more than welcome to, if I'm going to be near you, if you see me kind of put that up on social media or on YouTube, if I'm going to be near you, reach out. Maybe we can work you in, or get some work done in person. If you're interested in having me come to you, that's always an option as well. If you're a member of a club, or you have a bunch of buddies that play golf and want to get me out there to work with you guys, that's always an option. And you can use the website to send me an email and let me know kind of what you're thinking, and we can put something together for you. Or better yet, if you're just sick and tired of looking at the snow like I am right now here in Michigan, and you got maybe a garage set up or you got access to a simulator or a driving range that's open this time of year, I do a lot of virtual coaching as well, which is really been amazing. I've been pleasantly surprised with, I was very against it for such a long time, and I didn't think that that was a good way to do it. But I've been pleasantly surprised. I've got, a lot of my business has shifted to the online coaching, and I've had a lot of success with it. So I'm excited to be able to get people the help they need through the internet, through just kind of getting on the phone with people and virtually having a call and I use Zoom to do it. And it's been really good, and we've had a lot of success with that. So super excited about that. If you're interested in any of those things, like I said, feel free to reach out. You can just go to Measured Golf. You can send me an email directly. It goes directly to me. So it'll be me who reaches back out to you. So if you want to reach out, great. If you have any ideas, what you'd like me to talk about here on the podcast, those are always welcome as well. I would say the hardest thing for me in this podcast is just figuring out what to talk about and what people are interested in, because generally my interests maybe are a little bit different than others. So if you got some ideas or there's something you're just begging that I eventually talk about, reach out to me, let me know what your ideas are. And I can't guarantee that we'll do a podcast on it, but if you give me a good idea, I almost guarantee you I will, because I'm always looking for what the next thing is we need to talk about that's going to help people the most. So, once again, appreciate you listening to the podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe. That helps us out tremendously across all the channels. So, if you don't mind kind of looking us up, giving us a follow, giving us a subscription, that really helps. But yeah, thanks so much. It's going to be a fun year. I'm excited. I think we're going to keep the podcast going a little bit. A few people have reached out and wanted to know like when we're going to do a break again. But for right now, I think we're going to keep it going at least through the super cold months, because it gives me something to do outside of teaching. And I enjoy just kind of getting on here and sharing some stuff. So thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate it. And as always, until next time, keep grinding.